Hello and welcome to Cairo for a special edition of the France 24 debate. There's something timeless about the flow of the Nile, but over the past 2.5 years, Egypt has rewritten its history several times over. First there was the ouster, like in Tunisia and Libya, of a long-time strongman, and then there was, through the ballot box, an Islamist wave, and finally, 2 weeks ago, the ouster of Egypt's first ever democratically elected civilian president. Was it because of beginners' mistakes and an authoritarian bend, or are we witnessing a counter-revolution bolstered by Gulf states which are wary of any challenge to an established order? We're going to be asking in the France 24 debate, is there the possibility of breaking the impasse in Egypt? And with us to talk about it, and I want to welcome her, is Dina, deputy editor of Ahram online. Also with us, Allaa IBRAHIM MOSTAFA, spokesperson for the Muslim Brotherhood's Freedom and Justice Party. MEKKI, deputy chair for foreign affairs in the Al-Nour party, and Heba MORAYEF of Human Rights Watch. Thanks for being with us. Now, it's hard to believe that it was just 2 weeks ago that Mohamed Morsi was still the president of Egypt, and now, at this particular moment in time, you can really say that the shoe is on the other foot. Catherine Stapley reports.
Just weeks ago, they were ruling Egypt. Now, the Muslim Brotherhood's centre of power is this makeshift camp, a city within a city. And daily life goes on here unabated. Stalls sell clothes and food. Everyday needs are catered for. The people here are determined to continue their sit-in until Mohamed Morsi is reinstated. But the shock at the swift removal of their president is still palpable. And they have just one simple demand.
I want my president back, and for those who attacked us to be punished. I want them punished. The blood of the martyrs won't go away. The legitimate president is Mohamed Morsi. Mohamed Morsi is still the president of Egypt. All the young guys, all the people here are very optimistic. They have a lot of hope. They're really positive. They're full of conviction. This is over. God's victory is close.
These people remain convinced Egypt should be an Islamic state, and they're getting ready to fight for that. The women here are just as defiant.
They claim to defend democracy. What sort of democracy is it? Democracy is a ballot box. We elected Morsi and we prepared a constitution, and 64% of people voted for it. Morsi was elected with 52% of the votes. General Sisi says it's the legitimacy of the revolution. We're the revolution. He says he's with the people. Which people? The people of Tahrir or Rabba al-Adiwa?
Brotherhood stalwart Osama Yassin was Minister of Youth until Morsi's government was ousted.
All authority in Egypt has been stolen. The parliament was dissolved, the Senate was dissolved, the constitution was suspended. The democratically elected president is no longer president. What do we have left? We're going to continue. We're going to remain steadfast. We're going to stand firm, and we won't go back home until we stop this military coup.
Many Brotherhood leaders are hiding out here, afraid of the new authorities. Persecuted and imprisoned under Hosni Mubarak's regime, the Muslim Brotherhood fear they're now facing yet another crackdown. Many of their leaders have been arrested. Their supreme guide, Mohamed Badia, is accused of provoking violence. Their public face has been badly damaged, with attacks on their political headquarters across the country, and their media outlets have been closed down. The Muslim Brotherhood are rejecting any negotiations with the new regime, refusing to accept defeat.
Refusing to accept, and there's a huge march that's planned by the Brotherhood for Friday. But Allaa IBRAHIM MOSTAFA, we saw that that hasn't stopped the interim government from being named and formed. What's the plan going forward?
Actually, our plan is very clear. Either the democracy to get back to this country, or we stay in the streets demonstrating in a peaceful way till we have the democracy back in this country. The main problem here is not the legitimacy only of the president, Mohamed Morsi, but it's the main thing that we all Egyptians should have the real power and the real capacity and power to rule and to choose whatever they want through democratic means, through the ballot boxes. This is the way that Egyptians want. This is why Egyptians in the January 25th went down in the streets and protested against Mubarak regime, because he was a dictator dictator. Every election was in Mubarak's regime was ended by 99.9% for Mubarak's regime. So he was a dictator. And now today we see that the interim government that they formed has about more than 13 of its members who was pre-NDP, or one of them was actually the manager of the office of Gamal Mubarak. So it's totally revert back to Mubarak's regime on the army's hands. So our strategy for this situation is very clear: getting the right of Egyptians to choose whatever and whoever to rule them by democracy and by the votes.
Okay, but the militants that we met in Nasser City, they're shopkeepers, they're professionals, they have an active stake in the economy. How long can they hold out?
We are very patient, by the way, because this is the destiny of this country, and this is not the destiny of Egypt only. This is the destiny, actually, of all the Egypt and the places around it. So, because Egypt has a very big strategic position, either in Africa, in Arab party, or
you think they can hold out a long time?
Yes, we are patient because we fight for a very big cause. We fight for democracy. We want legitimacy, and this is our right. This is the right of Egyptians to have their democracy back.
Dina, what's your prediction on that score?
I'm sorry, I have to comment first on what Allaa just said. I mean, Egyptians did go out on the 25th of January simply because they wanted to vote, or they wanted their vote to be respected. They went out because they wanted justice, because people were being tortured in the police stations, because they couldn't get their bread and butter. They couldn't get decent health care. That's why the Egyptians went out against that. Yeah, but that was the case through the year under Mohamed Morsi. Nothing happened. Maybe Heba can speak more about the torture reports, the reports about torture in police stations in the year where Morsi was in power, how people's lives became even worse. We're talking here about democracy. What's more democratic than people going out petitioning in every road, every street, in every city, demanding early elections, and then going out marching in millions in the streets, demanding early elections? What's more democratic than that? I mean, I have a lot of problems with the army stepping into the scene. But if it weren't for the army stepping in, did you really expect the democratic president, who were democratically elected, with hardly 51% of the Egyptian votes, when you have 49% who did not vote for him, and others who did not even bother to go? Did you think that this democratic president would have abided to demands of the people who petitioned in millions and marched in millions, and would have provided early presidential elections? I have my doubts about that.
Just briefly, I want Ahram, MEKKI, the Al-Nour party that you belong to, not taking part in the interim government that's been put in place, but you're a part of the process. You've been consulted. You vetoed several names for certain posts. Was this the only way that was possible? Did it have to come to this?
Let me talk first what we did in the government. We put a criteria for the prime minister. We put 4 criteria that he has to be not part of the political war before June 30th, and he has to be economist and technocrat. He also has to have experience in the Egyptian government, and he has to reflect the Egyptian, real Egyptian identity mirror. And I think that was our comment in Braday. Before that, and we said that that's because we need the street to get stabilized, and we need the street to get not to be divided again. So,
but what's been the outcome is that Egypt seems more divided than before.
Yes, because that they are what they are doing now. It's more than. They were criticizing the National Salvation Front. They were criticizing Muslim Brotherhood, and.
So did you make a mistake by cautioning this process, or
I mean,
should you have backed President Morsi?
I mean, this is we are saying this is not the right way of dealing with the Egyptians as freedom and justice. We're ruling the country. They should share. and try to engage the political parties more than that. And also, what we are seeing now is the disaster, and this is the most disaster thing that we can see. It's the dictatorship regime. It's more than Mubarak regime.
So you do regret that
yes,
Mohamed Morsi has been ousted?
Yes, but if he, but we were saying that he can protect his legitimacy by saying that he will do an early election or doing a referendum before the period of that the army gave.
Heba MORAYEF, journalist in French newspaper Le Monde, said Tahrir is dead, the spirit of those 18 days that overthrew Hosni Mubarak. At this particular point in time, when you see the way the situation is evolving, have we turned back the clock?
I'd have to conclude yes, because I think the strength of the Tahrir moment was that unity in opposing Mubarak's rule. The problem with the Tahrir moment is that it was in opposition to Mubarak. And subsequently, over that year and a half of military rule, there were more protests in opposition to the military. But there was never an alternative that was articulated that would clearly set down the criteria for the alternative vision. And of course, because the Freedom and Justice Party were the most organized, when they took rule, they ruled for a year on the basis of sound presidential elections, but not as Democrats, not with the consent and looking beyond their own constituencies. And that's brought us to a moment where there have been voices calling for the military to step in and to rule, and an empowerment of many of the figures of the Mubarak era, an empowerment of the deep state in a way that I find very, very disturbing. Whereas at the same time, June 30th was a message to Morsi that things were not sustainable. June 30th was not just a conspiracy against him. It was far broader than that. He had lost legitimacy in the eyes of a significant portion of the population, and his choice of his way of ruling was unsustainable. And so sadly, we're at a moment in Egypt which I think is a very dangerous one.
Allaa, do you take the point that to a large degree, President Morsi brought this upon himself?
Well, I have many points to add here after the speeches of people here. So first of all, during this last year, we had seen many steps taking place on the ground, which was towards the prosperity for this people. For example, as Mrs. said, regarding the bread, for example, we had a historical person named Bassem Ouda who was working very hard, and he was a star actually for people, because he really made many enhancements in this area. There were many steps taken by the old government towards the right path. Of course, they had been attacked, and they had been made obstacles to them, and this is very clear today. When we see today that the policemen and the army are working that hard against the peaceful protestation of President that support legitimacy and President Morsi, we understand very well how much they were there planning to get him out, actually. So I'm with the idea of that was some steps that can be taken to avoid something like that, but this won't change the reality, because this deep state that was working very hard actually to get Morsi out of the image by any means. So they had the media having this evil speech towards any opposition to their needs. They have the media that is asking every day to the army to get down. They had the opposition who were rejecting and refusing many times the president's offer to come and to make a coalition and to make a national dialogue many times. And once the army is there, they are here to get it, and they are there to make an interim government that is a coup. This is a totally coup. And also, we have many issues regarding the opposition. So, for example, the rebel movement, I think that having a movement in the streets asking for anything in a peaceful and democratic way, this is okay. This has nothing to do. Just tell me, did the current coup made what the rebel asked for? The answer is no. The rebel called for an early presidential elections. And this is their right. They have the right to ask something like that. But what happened is that there is a military coup. The rebel, actually, people were not there in the government at all. And by, for example, Mr. Shadi Ghazali yesterday on Sky News Arabia was telling, we don't want that youth participates in the government because they don't have much experience. Although in Morsi's government or Mr. Kandil government, we had 3 or 4 ministers who were about 35 to 49 actually years old. So there is this opposition in their way of thinking, and there is this opposition in their actually actions that tells that this is a complete military coup, and it is planned by all these ingredients, you know.
Dina, SAMAK, help us who are not Egyptian to understand this, because we see the army give a warning, we see the president ousted and being held by the army, and we see now the list of the government, which has a lot of what they call the usual suspects, people who've been a long time in power.
I can tell you there's no black and white in the situation we're in, actually. Was 30 June a sign that people were not happy with the rule of the Muslim Brotherhood and Mohamed Morsi? Definitely it was. Was going out in the streets petitioning in millions for weeks a sign that people weren't happy? It was. The military stepped in, but was this a coup against Mohamed Morsi or the mobilization of the masses? This is something actually that we will have to wait and see. I totally agree with Allaa that after the army stepped in and kicked Morsi out or just removed him from his post, nothing from what the people were out on the 30th of June demanding was actually achieved. And this is really this is what scares me here, and this is what makes me think that if you had asked me, you know, on the 30th of June or on the 3rd of July if it's a military coup, I would have said definitely no. This is the demands of the people, and the military is stepping in to achieve the demands of the people. But after the 3rd of July, seeing what's happening on the ground, I can consider this to be a coup, but against who? This is the question. It's against the mobilization of the people who went out in millions in the streets. The people demand radical changes. Morsi did not deliver radical changes, and if you don't deliver radical changes, you will receive radical opposition. This applies to Morsi, to Hazem al-Biblawi, or to whoever president will be elected soon.
All right, radical changes, are they possible in a huge, sometimes unruly giant that they call Egypt? Stay with us. More to come in this special edition of the France 24 debate.